man, it's been 3 weeks ago since I actually have last played this game, mainly because of multiple factors, which I'm sure enough I'll briefly do a recap of this once we're able to actually get this process going. So, hey, what is up ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only, Silver the Hedgehog here, and once again, I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos once again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, for the Nintendo Entertainment System / Famicom Disk System for those of you who lived in Japan. So, last time, if I recall correctly, we did somehow manage to able to tackle through the, I would say the 4th palace, if I'm assuming so anyway. Mind you, again, it's been 3 weeks ago since we've last touched this game, and because of that, yeah, that's what I can really think about it. So today, for this video, is about the fact that we're going to be hitting off to the 5th palace. So as a result, and if you couldn't tell already, I somehow managed to able to grind myself some more experience points for a bit, to able to actually go back on to 620, because despite the fact that technically I've already reached that specific amount, before I somehow managed to get a game over. So as a result, good thing I did somehow manage to able to do this off screen. So just because I just refused to able to realize about the fact that I just, well, you know what I'm saying. So anyways, the 5th palace is pretty annoying, if only because of the layout. It is going to be a lot of emphasis on backtracking. It's also going to be a biggest pain in the butt, and on top of that, certain enemies will like to get you cornered, and because of that though, this is definitely one of my least favorite palaces in the game, most notably because of the forms of how the fact that there's going to be a lot of frustration has been involved in this, and I think that was the point I've actually got into whenever I first got to this point on the Wii U Virtual Console re-release version back in 2018, despite the fact that back then, I basically give up playing it after I've managed able to traverse in this section. So because of that, yeah, there's going to be a lot of times about the fact that we will come across as the forms of some dangerous obstacles from time to time, specifically with the crumbling bridge, and on top of that, there's going to be a lot of lava pits involved, and in addition to that, some very annoying enemy encounters, specifically the blue iron knuckles, and especially noticeable with the forms of everything else that resides. And then also not to mention those about the fact that you have to memorize the forms of that particular layout of this particular palace, and because of that, it's almost like a maze-like temple of any sort. So because of that though, yeah, this particular temple is annoying because of the actual layout. So, yeah, pretty stupidly annoying. So, yeah, that's what I can really think about it. So, anyways though, today's date of course here is the 9th of December today, in some cases in 2023 today. Today marks the films of the final special for the sake of the films of the Doctor Who 60th anniversary specials, and because of that, the Giggles is going to be eventually going to be releasing just tonight. So, hopefully I should be able to actually watch that during at some point today. Now I'm sure enough for those of you who lived in America will still able to get a chance to see that as well, thanks to the films of Disney+. So because of that, yeah, it seems kind of strange to be able to actually release the Doctor Who series of episodes during the course of being Disney+ every once in a while, and that could be also applied for the UK version for the sake of Chicken Run, that despite the fact that Chicken Run was supposed to be a DreamWorks movie, so kind of weird on the UK version anyway though, so yeah, or maybe I somehow managed able to just think about something else. So, speaking of which though, is about the fact that we've only just got about 6 more days to go until Chicken Run Dawn of the Nuggets will be releasing, so on Netflix most notably. Now technically speaking, the reviews has actually gone up, and as a result has actually received some very good scores so far. Likely also for the sake of the films so far, it actually receives about 76% from Rotten Tomatoes, which I suppose that's a good thing, even though some people seem to say it's nowhere near as amazingly perfect compared to the films of how it does on the first film. I think the reason criticism with that is most notably because of this controversial opinion for its cast replacements for the likes of the films of Rocky and Ginger, and you'd probably name the rest of it though, so also, we're gonna have to able to obtain that key somehow, and because of that, much like in Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse, we need to able to deal with these particular infinite amount of blocks that we're gonna have to able to avoid getting hurt by it, and potentially speaking of, yeah, you get the idea of how this is gonna turn out. So, Anyways though, let's get into the forms of certain exciting things we'd like to be able to discuss upon. Now as of course, the main emphasis on the forms of this particular topic at this point, while in the middle of this process of the forms of this particular powers itself, is that, for those of you probably already know, that recently yesterday marks the forms of the Game Awards, and well, I've seen it from the likes of the forms of somewhat in yesterday. It was alright. I mean, it's not the greatest finale, but it does have some very good points from time to time. Likely also, for the sake of the forms of certain games have claimed their rewards, and even every once in a while there's going to be some little bits of announcements from time to time, and also some exciting stuff coming up. So because of that, first of all, let's go ahead and get started with the forms of certain games managed able to claim their rewards, likely or so. Originally though, I was expecting to try mentioning about the forms of certain rewards in the chronological order, but I think I'm also going and do it as in a backwards fashion. So because of that, I was expecting to able to mention about the forms of other topic, but I think it has been a very long while since we actually mentioned something related to the Game Awards, ever since during the forms of by the end of November, basically. So either way, let's get to it, shall we? The winner of the Forms of Content Creator of the Year, which appears to be Iron Mouse. So yeah, that's it. That's something. And Player's Voice is actually reward goes to Baldur's Gate 3. And trust me, what I'm saying is that eventually in the later awards that I'm about to be mentioning though, prepare to able to actually hear that Baldur's Gate 3 a lot, and I think you probably already know why. So because of that, in terms of the most highly anticipated game reward goes to, it managed able to goes to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So yeah, it seems obvious choice kind of thing about it, because everyone has been hyped about the sequel to Final Fantasy VII after all, so I guess that makes a little bit more sense, despite the fact that it's only going to be releasing on PlayStation 5 and all that stuff. So yeah, I don't think it's possible it's going to be releasing on PlayStation 4 now, and especially noticeable with Xbox One as well. And I think, relatively speaking though, is about the fact that for certain game announcements, they did somehow bring us something into the table. Likely, for example, there's actually a new game is going to be announced, or to be more specifically, there's going to be a new Monster Hunter game is going to be on its way until 2025, and as it turns out, it is going to be Monster Hunter Wilds. So as a result, it was expecting to be releasing on PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series X/S, as well as PC Steam. So because of that, no mentions of the forms of the PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, or heck, even especially noticeable with the Nintendo Switch, or should I say Nintendo Switch 1. Well, I suppose no matter what though, entering at some point in the future, maybe that Nintendo might able to actually plan out something for that matter, until specifically when it gets to the point until the future years to come. So, at the very least that's something. So, anyways, let's get back into the forms of the actual catalog to see what specific rewards goes to. The best adaptation reward goes to The Last of Us TV series, which I was really hoping for the Super Mario Bros. Movie to be the winner here, but unfortunately though, that's not the case. Although, I believe something tells me it might be something to do with the actual judges of the forms of the critics' reviews, as well as the forms of the review scores alike, because remember that the actual critics' response for the sake of the forms of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, sadly, much like the forms of how it does it for not only Rio 2, but also My Little Pony the Movie 2017, it received some very mixed reception during the course of the critic scores. However, for audience standpoint, it did receive pretty good reviews for its audience score for the sake of the Super Mario Bros. Movie. So yeah, it's kind of unfortunate though, especially that at least I'll give a congratulations to The Last of Us series. So at the very least, I totally understand, because no wonder why that The Last of Us series is actually going to get a lot more popular these days, ever since back in 10 years ago, when it first released the actual game of The Last of Us on the PlayStation 3, and they did somehow manage able to receive a re-release, remastered version on the PlayStation 4, and even with a full remake on the PlayStation 5, as in The Last of Us Part 1. So yeah, it must have felt a bit pretty insane if you ask me. The best multiplayer award goes to Baldur's Gate 3, and also best sports/racing award goes to Forza Motorsport. So, yeah, that's something, I suppose. Now, here's the interesting part, is that not only do we get 1, but 3 Nintendo rewards for 3 different categories. Likely also, for instance, for example, Best Sim/Strategy Game award goes to Pikmin 4 for the Nintendo Switch. So because of that, I suppose that's a good thing, especially concerning for the fact that everyone else is desperately want to play Pikmin 4 now after finally being released during the course of this year. So because of that though, yeah, it's pretty good for the most part, even though despite the fact that I still haven't gone back into Pikmin 4 for some time. But that's just mainly because no matter what though, Sonic is still playing through Sonic Frontiers at this point. So anyway, the next category, which appears to be by default of Best Family, and the reward for that goes to none other than Super Mario Bros. Wonder. So yes, congratulations to Super Mario Bros. Wonder did somehow claim that reward for the Best Family Game. So yeah, pretty cool and awesome at the same time, even though that Sonic fans might be a little bit bummed out that Sonic Superstars never claimed the award, but at least they did get nominated though at the end, so I suppose that's something. And the best fighting game goes to Street Fighter 6. So, because everyone else has been hyped about the forms of Street Fighter 6 ever since after the events of Street Fighter 5 did somehow came out since quite a long time ago. Even though I was expecting for Mortal Kombat 1, but turns out that Street Fighter 6 did manage able to beat its competition. So, yeah, I suppose that's something. So, either way, and the next catalog, which appears to be Best Action/Adventure Game, goes to, much like the forms of how it does it for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So instead, it's now The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So, yeah, that's the second time in a Zelda game did manage able to claim the actual Best Action/Adventure Game, since in during forms have been the Game Awards since 2017 from the likes of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, even though despite the fact that Breath of the Wild did somehow receive 3 awards during the course of in 2017, including by the forms of the Game of the Year award. So, even though it's kind of a bummer though, which I'll explain more about it until whenever we get to the final catalog, which appears to be the Game of the Year award. So for now, the Best Action Game award goes to Armored Core 6. So, yeah, I suppose that's something. And the Best VR/AR game goes to Resident Evil Village or Resident Evil 8 Village VR mode. So that's quite convenient. And the Best Mobile Game goes to Honky Star Rail. So yeah, I guess that's that. And the Best Debuted ND goes to Kokon or Kokonkon. I can't really pronounce that very well, which I will admit though right away though, it's been about quite a few days, like I said before, especially concerning for the fact that if you couldn't tell already, I was trying to able to get bypass for that particular Iron Knuckle, but I'm afraid that I'm almost about to die, so. But hopefully though, this particular playthrough might not be as frustrating as I originally attempted, but still, I'm just really not a big fan of this power as far as I'm aware. Thus, it actually contains my least favorite color, which appears to be green, which I suppose by that time until tomorrow anyway, I suppose I should probably be able to discuss upon a huge comparison between not only the NES version, but also the Famicom Disk System version of the game as well, so we can able to expect to mention more about it until then. So, anyways though, the best independent game goes to Sea of Stars, so yeah, congratulations to that. And the next catalog, which appears to be Best Community Support, goes to Baldur's Gate 3. And also, Best Ongoing Game goes to Cyberpunk 2077, despite the fact that back then it was quite of a negative reception in the end, most notably because of the forms of a whole bunch of bugs and glitches, but thankfully with patches is now a thing, so this means about the fact it should be a little bit more stable for the most part, I guess. So, anyway, Games for Impact Award goes to Tanchi, I think is what it says anyway. Even though I apologize for that particular tongue twist in the end, folks. Especially, I can't really pronounce certain things very well, so even now I do apologize for this point, folks. Anyway, the next category, which appears to be in innovation in accessibility, goes to Forza Motorsport. So, yeah, I guess it's that. And the best performance goes to, Nil Newborn, or Newborn, by the looks of the forms of Baldur's Gate 3. So because of that, though, yeah, it seems kind of, strange, kind of thinking about it, because I've never actually played Baldur's Gate 3 before, but I definitely heard about it though, but I've never actually played it for myself. So, anyway, so we've beaten the boss. Now, before we end this off here, I need to take care of the forms of that item I need to obtain, which is, you know, very important to know, because as soon as we're able to actually get the next item, that'll be mandatory if we want to progress, which that could be also applies to another thing as well, which I suppose that particular topic can wait, and during at some point in the next couple of days' time. So, anyway though, the next catalog, which appears to be best audio design award, goes to Hi-Fi Rush. So, yeah, that's something. And the best score and music goes to Final Fantasy 16. So, yeah, congratulations to that. And the best art direction goes to Alan Wake 2. Although I was expecting Super Mario Bros. Wonders beyond there, but regardless of such though, still get nominated no matter what. And the best narrative goes to Alan Wake 2. And not only that, best game direction goes to Alan Wake 2. And, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of Alan Wake 2's kind of thing about it for that particular reward stuff, as far as I'm aware. And finally, the Game of the Year award goes to, for the sake of the films of 2023, I'm sorry Zelda fans, or Mario fans out there, but the Game of the Year award goes to, is none other than Baldur's Gate 3. So, yeah, I was not expecting that, especially concerning that my expectations will be Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, but unfortunately though, Zelda did not make it for the second time. Well, at least specifically ever since Injury Forms have been. Well, you probably get the idea about that. So, yeah, kind of unfortunate, but regardless of such though, congratulations to Baldur's Gate 3 for able to claim the Game of the Year award. So, yeah, I guess that pretty much summarized the forms of the Game of the Year awards syndrome or something like that. So, anyway, the next thing I want to talk about is that after 10 years since when GTA 5 has been came out, well, about time is that GTA 6 has finally been announced, and by that time it's going to be releasing also in 2025. So because of that, I can expect for the fact that GTA 6 or Grand Theft Auto 6 was expecting to be releasing on next generation of consoles, specifically with PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X/S, and even PC, Steam, or something like that. Although my guess it will probably going to be focusing on PlayStation 5 along with Xbox Series X from now on. So I guess that makes it pretty obvious kind of thinking about it though. So yeah, it's about time to able to actually finally get a chance to able to see Grand Theft Auto 6 in action. So, mind you, we've only seen some bits of the footage, so even though that gives a lot of, you know, Grand Theft Auto fans expecting to be hyped, and especially noticeable concerning for the fact that we have to wait until 2 years' time for this point. So, much like the forms of how it does it for Monster Hunter Wilds. So, anyway, so let's get into the forms of the most exciting aspect when it comes to the forms of the Game Awards during that time, is that we actually got ourselves our first glimpse of our gameplay footage trailer for the likes of the upcoming Dragon Ball Z game, or should I say, a new Dragon Ball game, which as it turns out, it appears to be by the forms of, you know, the Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi game, and as it turns out, it did actually reveal the actual name of the title, and as it turns out, it's going to be Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. So because of that, I was really excited for this. But there's one problem, is that it's only going to be released on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and PC Steam as well. So because of that, unfortunately though, no Nintendo Switch release. So because of that, I'm not exactly sure when that's going to be releasing exactly for the likes of the forms of Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Although, kind of thinking about it, the actual title itself is actually kind of like a reference to something related to the Japanese version of the previous games. Like, usually in the Japanese version of the Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi games always calls it Dragon Ball Z Sparking from the likes of the forms of the previous 3 games in the past generations. Specifically, in the first game it calls it Dragon Ball Z Sparking, and then the second game calls it Dragon Ball Z Sparking Neo, and I think on the third one it calls it Dragon Ball Z Sparking you know, Meteor or something like that. So, mind you, I haven't exactly looked upon that much of the Japanese version as much compared to the forms of the English version, but that's the way I feel about it. So either way, yeah, I'm pretty excited for that, except I still don't have the PlayStation 5. Maybe potentially they'll try to able to announce that game at some point for the next Nintendo console at some point. I mean, I suppose they'll make it a little bit of a benefit for the doubt, but still, I was a little bit annoyed by that. So, anyway though, I suppose that seems to be the case. So, anyway, and the next exciting thing I want to address something about this as well, is that not only that we've already did somehow mention about this ever since in the past few days ago, we've already did manage able to technically mention about the celebration for the 5-year anniversary of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which still, while looking back on it though, it was a really epic crossover fighting game after all, even on the Nintendo Switch of course. So, and apparently though, is that they did somehow manage to address something about this as well, when it comes to certain events alike, is that it looks like we're about to be getting some new spirits is about to be coming until January in 2024. For Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. So, I'm not exactly sure how many there are though, but from what I've heard, they might only contain about 4 of them, at least if I'm assuming so anyway. So, yeah, my expectations is actually pretty high at this point, especially noticeable concerning for the fact that, well, I can't believe it's been, you know, 5 years ago since when that game first came out, ever since in 2018, so yeah, pretty fantastic all things considered. And also not to mention though, we actually get ourselves a confirmation for the sake of the forms of the release date for the final amiibo for Super Smash Bros. Lineup, and as of course, Sora himself, and apparently it's going to be releasing on not only is it going to release around the exactly same day as in Mario vs. Donkey Kong Remake for the Nintendo Switch, but it also is going to be releasing around the same day as marks the forms of the 13th anniversary of the Mexi Toys YouTube channel. So, yeah, I will say is that next year's February 16th is going to be pretty exciting, especially considering for the fact that that could potentially be the best day for the likes of the forms of next year so far. Well, potentially speaking though, next to the forms of June coming up, whenever we go to America to able to visit to Super Nintendo World in the forms of in Hollywood, in Universal Studios. So, yeah, that should be pretty exciting. So, and yeah, that's gonna be pretty top notch of what's to come. So, and also, apparently though, not only we're about to be able to receiving not 1, not 2, but 3 other Nintendo 64 games has already been released for the sake of the forms of the Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pack for the Nintendo 64 games lineup, and those are, well, originally we did say about the fact that back then, that we have to wait until 2024 for the sake of the forms of 1080 snowboarding, but as it turns out, it did somehow reveal the game just now. So because of that, not only we did somehow manage to able to receive Jet Force Gemini, or Jet Force Gemini, if I like to pronounce that, but also with 1080 snowboarding, and finally, out of nowhere, Harvest Moon 64. So because of that, yeah, that's actually a pretty cool selection as far as, you know, 3 games in one specific day. So yeah, that's actually pretty top notch, all things considered. And I believe that pretty much takes care of the forms of the majority of the Nintendo 64 games for now. Assuming, of course, no matter what though, for the next Nintendo Direct, or should I say, the first ever Nintendo Direct for 2024 to come, that maybe they'll potentially try to able to announce some more game selections during that time. I suppose no matter what though, maybe for Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 64 at some point, likely also able to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Super Smash Bros. Franchise, until likely also in 2024. So, who knows, we'll able to actually find out during that time period, even though we are still missing some couple of Game Boy Advance games left. So, for instance with Golden Sun, as well as the forms of F-Zero, Maximum Velocity, and you probably named the rest of it though. So, yeah, it's actually pretty unbelievable to able to realize about the fact that we're actually getting 3 N64 games recently for the sake of the forms of the Switch expansion pack for the sake of Nintendo Switch Online. So, yeah, pretty awesome. So, Oh, and another thing too is about the fact that apparently though, out of nowhere, is potentially speaking though, that Sonic Frontiers has recently been revealed there's a new update for it, which I suppose originally I was trying to able to mention about this now, but I suppose I'm gonna have to wait until when Sonic eventually finishes up everything for Sonic Frontiers. So hopefully that seems to be the case for this point. So yeah, I suppose we'll have to wait on that during in the future. So for now, let's get into the forms of another, and I suppose the last. Oh, actually, kind of thinking about it, there's actually the last two good things we'd like to discuss. Is that first of all, is that Eastwood did somehow receive the release date for the sake of the forms of the first piece of downloadable content will be arriving on not only on Nintendo Switch, but also on PC as well. And that's what appears to be by the forms of Eastwood Octopia, and it's going to be releasing at some point on the 31st of January. So yeah, that'll be something you might be looking forward to at some point. So that's something, I suppose. And also another thing too is about the fact that it looks like that when it comes to the upcoming series called Knuckles, the Knuckles TV show, will be expected to be having 6 episodes for the sake of the forms of Paramount Plus. So still I'm really looking forward to that though, even though it's kind of a shame I still haven't exactly access to Paramount Plus yet, but hopefully I will do at some point. But either way though, let's just go ahead and insert the next crystal on here and able to get the next level up. So yeah, that was it. That was the annoying palace done and over with. So finally I can now able to leave. I suppose I should probably mention about the last two things, which unfortunately though there are basically bad news for the sake of the forms of the last two things I want to mention. And the first one out of them all though, it appears to be by the forms of the Nickelodeon app is about to be shutting down. So because of that though, not exactly sure why that seems to be the case though. Let me know in the comments down below of why that particular app is about to close down or shut down entirely. So yeah, I honestly have no words. And originally though, that Nintendo was expecting to be able to do Nintendo Live Tokyo 2024, but unfortunately though, that particular event has been cancelled, mainly because of the forms of threats against staff. So yeah, that's kind of unfortunate, honestly, especially concerning for the fact that I was expecting to be able to actually just to really looking forward to able to seeing Charles Monteday's interview for that particular session or something like that. But sadly though, that particular event has been cancelled, sadly. Maybe they'll try to plan out with a different date sometime, but again, we'll have to wait and find out. So yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. So, and I suppose another thing I should probably want to explain about this as well, if you couldn't tell already, I've got yet another game over, just in case I want able to gain some of my extra lives at one point to make the entire journey a little bit more manageable. But hey, at least on the upside, we don't need to worry about just trying to take care of the Death Mountain segment again, because my god, that particular segment is painful. So anyway though, recently Sonic Forces Speed Battle, in some cases a mobile phone game, did somehow receive the new version update, and as it turns out, that game is now on version 4.23.0, and I believe what the new additions they added in is that it actually introduced bonus missions, where each week you will be able to receive different runners as a reward, like Treasure Hunter Knuckles and Elite Agent Rouge will be the reward for apparently for this week or something. So either way though, yeah, that's a new thing they somehow finally managed to able to add it in, despite I still basically give up on that game because it is virtually impossible to able to actually gain ourselves the top leaderboard for the sake of the forms of trying to claim certain amount of trophies and all that stuff, but it knows what it is, I guess, especially concerning how every once in a while certain opponents might get aggressive. So with that being said though, we got the endings up this point right here, so join me next time for more of Let's Play of Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link. Is that we're going to be able to approach onto the next point of the game and able to go into the 6th palace. So I'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later, fellas.